I've snuck back into my house. I don't think Thornette's noticed yet. Fingers crossed. So today I wanted to review a new movie that just came out, The Suicide Squad, and it was really, really good. Overall, if you just want my quick thoughts, I think James Gunn knocked it out of the park with this movie. It's funny, heartwarming, it's cool, it's action-packed, it's great. Be good movie. I only had like 2 or 3 actual problems with the movie, and they were all really just minor issues. So let's just get those out of the way first with this review. First up, there was like this subplot about a rebel like alliance group uprising that did nothing. It came out of nowhere and it went almost nowhere. In the end, they do rebel against the corrupt government, but like, so what? The whole plot point of that little rebellion group could have been written out of the entire movie and not a thing would have changed, actually. They show up once, like 30 minutes into the movie, and then they're ignored for the other 2 hours of the movie until they show up at the very, very end for just like 1 second for like one more scene. It's really underwhelming that they brought in that pretty cool and good idea just to do like nothing with it. And yes, I'm aware that it is that rebellion's group that allows them to get into the city, but that just could have been written around with Waller having hired the bus to get them into the city or something like that. It could have been written around so that that whole rebel subplot didn't have to be in the movie, which is kind of disappointing for such a great movie which everything else matters. My next issue, and this one's even more small and minor than the last, but there were just a couple characters that were definitely a bit underutilized. Specifically, King Shark, in my opinion, was one of the most underutilized characters. He has a very interesting plot. He wants to become more friendly with people and just be able to be in society and accepted, but he can't because he is a big shark man that will eat everything. Overall, this plot goes a little forward, it gets a little more advanced, but then it just drops off, and in the action sequences, like with Starro the Conqueror, he gets slammed into a building and then doesn't show up for the rest of the fight. And this issue carries over, shockingly, to Harley Quinn. For the only surviving character of the original Suicide Squad, it's weird to me how underused she seems. She carries around a javelin the whole time because Javelin gave it to her, and then she uses it on Starro, and that's kind of her whole arc. She has Javelin, she wants to know what to use Javelin on, she uses Javelin. That's about it. She really doesn't get to do a lot in this film, and I think that's mainly because she is, for the majority of the film, presumed dead, but then revealed to be kidnapped in a prison. Although I will say, I do really, really love her prison escape scene. It is just amazing. She gets guns and knives and she uses them all on the guards and people, and then she gets the javelin, and then it gets really cool because like animated flowers and birds pop out behind her, and anytime she slashes someone's throat with the javelin, flowers and birds spew out of them, and it looks visually really cool and interesting. And it's a nice change of pace from the rest of the film. And that's something I want to touch on, actually. I really like the cinematography, the camera work, all the visuals of the film. It looks really cool. It has these really stunning scenes or visuals, like them getting out of the bus and walking in the rain in the team-up shot. It looks really unique and interesting because they have a blinding white light behind them, and it makes them almost look like silhouettes in a weird way. It's really cool. When King Shark rips someone in half at Jotunheim, you can see like a bolt of lightning behind him, and it just looks visually great. And then possibly my favorite fight scene of the movie happens when Rick Flag and Peacemaker are fighting over a hard drive that contains evidence that the US government is responsible for Starro. The camera follows their fight through Peacemaker's helmet on the ground because it's super reflective. You can actually see them just punching each other and kicking each other, and it's really, really interesting to see a fight scene from that perspective. And then there's scenes like When Harley Quinn stabs Starro the Conqueror's eye, it looks really visually unique. She's just sitting in his eye fluids. I don't know what it is. It's kind of gross, but I mean, it has this weird sense of peace and happiness to it. I guess they're defeating Starro the Conqueror, but at the same time, it's visceral. It's really, really cool. And let's talk about Starro for a second. I think Starro is the greatest villain that could have been pitted against these guys. He is funny, ridiculous, a little bit horrifying, and that is perfect for this movie, because this movie is funny, ridiculous, and a little bit horrifying. I mean, you've got Polka Dot Man, kind of funny concept. He shoots polka dots that are highly corrosive, and that's kind of horrifying. But it's really, really cool to see them battle just a giant starfish. I really like how Starro talks to the Suicide Squad by having these mind flayer puppet things with starfish faces. It screams through other people, and it looks really cool and unique, and it works really well. When Starro the Conqueror gets his leg melted off, only to have it regrow, all the people that have been, like, integrated into this hive mind also scream in their pain. And I really like how the last line that Starro says is that how he was just happy floating among the cosmos. It's really, really fun. But Starro isn't the only character I like. In fact, he's barely a character. He's in it for a bit of the film, but he's just more serving as the final antagonist. I like pretty much every character in this movie, and the one character I don't like, you're meant to not like, which I like. I love King Shark. He's my favorite character. He's just a big friendly shark guy who just wants friends and wants to be accepted, and he's a nice guy. He's really fun and cool, but he also tears people in half, and that's awesome. I love Ratcatcher. She's like just a normal person, but she can control rats, and she tries to be friendly to everyone, including King Shark. And at the end, in the fight with Starro, she summons just every rat, it seems, that exists on the planet. And they just all attack Starro, but because we know a character, Bloodsport, is actually afraid of rats, you can actually see that she's comforting Bloodsport. She's got her arm around him, and it's really sweet and kind. And Bloodsport, I love Bloodsport. He is so well portrayed, and it's so fun to see him and Peacemaker go head to head. He's just a great leader type, and I love how in the end he disobeys Miss Waller to go and fight Starro. And Peacemaker, he's the character I hate, but you're meant to hate him. He does anything to preserve the peace, even if that is a little bit flawed. That's nice to see these flaws that these characters have. It's done really well. And he's kind of hired by Miss Waller to make sure that the information that Starro is from the US never gets out, to preserve the peace. I really like Polka Dot Man. He's kind of ridiculous, but I love it. He shoots polka dots, for crying out loud, but he's really great. And Harley Quinn, even though she's underutilized in my opinion, she's also pretty good in this movie. And Rick Flag, he has a very sad death, 10 out of 10. And then Peter Capaldi as the Thinker. I love Doctor Who, so that kind of made me squeal. I love it. But he does such a great performance. When he starts talking to Rick Flag and Ratcatcher and Peacemaker about how Starro's from the US, he gives such a good performance. He starts belting out how it was the US's fault and that they didn't want it on American soil. And it is so good. It's just such good acting. The only time I think there isn't good acting is Miss Waller has this kind of team with her at the task force headquarters, whatever. And the team's a little underacted. When the guy says, we got a kaiju up in here, I didn't really feel it. It just kind of felt, okay. But Miss Waller herself is acted really, really well. I like how they brought her back and they gave her just such a better character. She's now a little bit insane and crazy and will do anything to make sure that her mission is completed. But speaking of characters, like, half of them die immediately, and I love it. You open the movie, you follow Yondu from Guardians of the Galaxy, though it's not actually Yondu, forgot the actual character's name. And you follow him and an initial team of the Suicide Squad going on a mission. And you expect something to happen later on where the team splits up and we meet Bloodsport and Ratcatcher and all that. But you go in, They go in, they've been sold out by one of their team members, and then all of them die except for Harley Quinn and Rick Flag, and it is awesome. It's such a good cold open, and it plays with your expectations a lot, because my biggest fear going into this movie was that there were going to be too many characters too often, and you weren't going to be able to be emotionally attached to any of them, and their deaths would feel hollow. But James Gunn did such a good job, because every death played in the opening here is played for comedy. They're played to be funny deaths. And that really helped set the tone for the movie. That, yeah, it's horrible. People are dying. This is terrible. But holy crap, is it hilarious. It's funny. Honestly, if anyone but James Gunn were doing this movie, I feel it would be just so much worse. James Gunn has such a unique style that you can see in Guardians, but he really brings to the forefront here. It is only through James Gunn that I feel this movie is held together. His direction of the characters and the actors really helps bond them as a team and a family, which is a really big part of the movie. You see, the 2016 Suicide Squad would have you believe that, oh, they're a family, they're friends. Harley Quinn calls Deadshot her friend, ooh. But it feels hollow, it feels empty, it feels like it wasn't earned. They barely interact, and outside of that, what do? They fight a monster, woo. But in this movie, when Harley Quinn talks to Bloodsport, and she calls Bloodsport her friend, it feels earned. It feels like, yeah, they went through that, and they bonded. They became an actual family, a real unit of a team. They work together, and they're happy. Honestly, this movie is just awesome. That's the only way to describe it. There's a few flaws here and there, but they're really minor. In overall, a really friggin' awesome movie. I mean, the action is great. The cinematography blends it together. The visuals and the characters, they all work really well together. And I love it. This movie works really well as a setup for them becoming friends, becoming a team, becoming a group. And I love that. Because that's what the 2016 Suicide Squad was devoid of. Any life, any sense of them becoming a family. This movie focuses on that for the majority of the runtime, and it works really, really well. Overall, I have to give Suicide Squad a 9 out of 10, and it is a well-deserved 9 out of 10. This movie is awesome. Please, please, please go watch it on HBO Max or in theaters if you can. Be safe out there. Have fun. Go watch The Suicide Squad. I'll see you later. Thank God she hasn't noticed I'm back in the house yet. Once she does, I'm out of here.